Hattie McDaniel sat at a segregated table the night she made history at the 1940 Academy Awards. The year was 1940, Hollywood's biggest night. The Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles was packed with stars. Vivien Leigh, Clark Gable, Olivia de Havilland, David O. Selznick. Champagne, cameras. The kind of room that told you exactly who mattered in this industry and who didn't. And somewhere near the back wall, at a small segregated table set apart from everyone else, sat the woman who was about to become the most celebrated actress in the room. She would walk to that podium. She would hold the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She would make history in front of the entire industry. And then she would walk back to her table at the back. Her name was Hattie McDaniel. And what happened to her that night, and in the years that followed, is one of the most complicated, heartbreaking, and quietly radical stories in the history of American entertainment. This is not the story you were told. Hattie McDaniel was born in Wichita, Kansas in 1893, the youngest of 13 children, more than half of whom died in infancy. Both of her parents had been enslaved. Her father, Henry McDaniel, had escaped bondage to fight as a soldier in the United States Colored Troops during the Civil War, suffering injuries that haunted him for the rest of his life. For 18 years after the war, he fought the federal government just to receive his military pension. Young Hattie used to help him fill out the paperwork. The family moved west, first to Fort Collins, then Denver, Colorado, fleeing the collapse of Reconstruction and the violence that came with it. In Denver, Hattie attended school as one of only 2 black children in her class. At home, she sang so constantly that her mother reportedly bribed her with coins just to get some silence. It didn't work. By the time she was 17, she had won a gold medal at a public recital, earning a standing ovation for a dramatic poem. She dropped out of school to join her father's traveling minstrel troupe, a decision that broke her mother's heart. But Hattie had already understood something that would define her entire career. The only room she was ever going to be welcomed into was the one where she was performing. Through the 1920s, she toured the vaudeville circuit, recorded blues records, and in 1925, became one of the first black women to sing on American radio. Reviewers called her the biggest showstopper of them all. She was building a career on talent alone, in a country that was systematically trying to stop her. And then, the Depression hit. Her booking agency went bankrupt. She found herself stranded in Milwaukee, broke and working as a bathroom attendant at a Prohibition-era nightclub that hired only white performers. She cleaned the bathrooms, and she could not stop singing while she did it. Patrons heard her through the walls and demanded she be put on stage. The crowd's reaction was so overwhelming that the owner had no choice. Within weeks, Hattie McDaniel was headlining. That is who she was before Hollywood ever saw her. Not the mammy, not the maid. A woman who had been cleaning bathrooms and singing her way out of rooms that were designed to keep her in them. McDaniel arrived in Los Angeles in 1931 with reportedly $20 to her name, lured by siblings who had already found minor work in films. When Hollywood wouldn't hire her, she worked as an actual maid and laundress, the same labor she would become famous for portraying. Her brother Sam got her onto a local radio show, where she created a character called High Hat Hattie, a bossy, sharp-tongued domestic who, as one critic put it, often forgets her place. For her first broadcast, she showed up in a formal evening gown. It was a statement. Her screen career built slowly through the 1930s, one maid role after another. She appeared in approximately 300 films and received on-screen credit for only about 80 of them. In 1936 alone, she was in 12 films. Directors loved her because she could do in a single take what other actors couldn't do in 20. Co-stars sought her out. Audiences reacted to her with a warmth that was increasingly impossible for studio executives to ignore. But with each new film, the ceiling remained exactly where it was. No leading roles, no romantic storylines, no complexity. A maid. Again. What most people never saw was what she was doing within those constraints. Her characters grew steadily more assertive across the decade. In film after film, her maids talked back, rolled their eyes, outmaneuvered the white characters around them. She was doing something subversive inside a system that didn't realize it was being subverted. By the time she was cast in Gone with the Wind, her mammy had become, in the words of more than one film scholar, superior in intelligence and dignity to almost every white character surrounding her. The studio never intended that. She built it herself, one scene at a time. The competition for the role of Mammy in Gone with the Wind was intense enough to be absurd. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote to producer David O. Selznick personally, requesting the part for her own maid. One white actress showed up at author Margaret Mitchell's home in blackface. Louise Beavers and several others were considered. McDaniel's approach was characteristically strategic. She auditioned wearing an actual period maid's uniform. She had done the research. She understood the role in ways no one else did. Clark Gable, her friend since they'd worked together on a film 4 years earlier, personally recommended her to Selznick. Bing Crosby called the producer as well. On January 27, 1939, Hattie McDaniel was cast at $450 per week. On set, she and Gable traded pranks and shared genuine warmth. During one scene, they reportedly filled prop bottles with real alcohol and got quietly drunk over several takes. McDaniel later said she loved Mammy, that she understood her because her own grandmother had worked on a plantation not unlike Tara. And during production, she drew her most significant quiet line. She refused to say the N-word, which appears throughout Margaret Mitchell's novel but does not appear once in the finished film. That was Hattie McDaniel's doing. The studio didn't announce it. There was no press release. She just refused. Then came the Atlanta premiere on December 15, 1939. Gone with the Wind was Georgia's homecoming. Lowe's Grand Theater on Peachtree Street. Georgia's Jim Crow laws made it impossible for any black cast member to attend. Selznick asked that McDaniel be permitted to come. MGM advised him not to push it. Clark Gable threatened to boycott the premiere entirely unless she could be there. In one of the clearest expressions of who Hattie McDaniel was, she talked Gable out of it. She convinced him to go without her. She protected his career at the cost of her own attendance at the premiere of the most important film she would ever make. None of the black actors attended. Their images were removed from promotional materials distributed in the South. Black Atlantans waited 4 months before they were permitted to see the film in a segregated theater. Among the young choir members dressed as enslaved people and performing at the premiere that night was a boy from Atlanta named Martin Luther King Jr. The 12th Academy Awards took place on February 29, 1940, at the Coconut Grove nightclub inside the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. The Ambassador had a strict no blacks policy. It would not formally integrate until 1959. Hattie McDaniel was going to be honored in a building that did not allow people like her through the door. David O. Selznick called the hotel management personally and secured a one-time exception. This was framed as a gesture of generosity. Let that settle for a moment. She arrived in a turquoise gown adorned with rhinestones, white gardenias in her hair. Gossip columnist Luella Parsons described her as radiant. She was the first African-American ever to attend the Academy Awards as a guest. Not a performer hired for the evening, not a server, not a coat check attendant. A guest, the first one. She was also not seated with the Gone with the Wind table, where Selznick sat with Lee, Gable, and de Havilland. Instead, she was escorted to a small table set against the far wall of the room, segregated from the white attendees, with her escort and her white agent, one of the very few agents in Hollywood who would represent black actors at all. It was nearly 1 in the morning, 5 hours into the ceremony, when Best Supporting Actress was announced. The presenter, Faye Bainter, the previous year's winner, gave a speech about how America recognizes talent regardless of creed, race, or color. She delivered it to a room in which the winner was sitting at a segregated table near the kitchen. One columnist who was present described the audience's reaction as an ovation he had never seen paralleled in Academy history. Luella Parsons called it the most popular win of the evening. Hattie McDaniel walked from her table at the back of the room to the podium at the front. She was crying. She thanked the Academy, thanked the industry, and said, "I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel." The speech lasted 67 seconds. She received the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, a small plaque-style Oscar, the standard format for supporting winners at that time. Then she walked back to her table. Her white co-stars went to a celebration party afterward at a venue that did not permit black patrons. Hattie McDaniel did not follow. She would later reflect, "I feel no great personal pride for my contribution to the world of art. Rather, I feel that the entire 14 million or more Negroes have all been raised a few notches higher in the estimation of the world." She was not talking about herself. She never was. What followed the Oscar should have been a career transformation. It wasn't. And the pressure that kept it from being one did not come only from the white studio executives who had always limited her. It came from within the black community she had just claimed the win for. Walter White, the executive secretary of the NAACP, had been waging a campaign against what he called demeaning black roles in Hollywood for years. He was a light-skinned man who could pass for white and who used that access aggressively, cultivating relationships with studio heads, traveling to Los Angeles with a letter of introduction from Eleanor Roosevelt, enlisting Republican presidential nominee Wendell Willkie as a Hollywood ally. He was doing important structural work. He was also, by the accounts of many black actors, doing it with a contempt for the performers caught in the system he was trying to change. His documented statement about McDaniel: "I am disgusted at the sheer selfishness of actors like Hattie, who just want to save their jobs without regard for the future of Negroes as a whole." He praised Lena Horne publicly while ignoring McDaniel at a 1942 NAACP convention of nearly 10,000 delegates. The Chicago Defender called Gone with the Wind a weapon of terror against Black America. Langston Hughes wrote that almost any black person could spot an Uncle Tom. The pressure was real, the critique was not entirely wrong, and Hattie McDaniel was caught between two industries, one that would hire her only to demean her, and one that wanted her to stop working until it didn't. Her response was neither passive nor simple. The most famous line, "I'd rather play a maid and make $700 a week than be one for $7." This is usually treated as a quip. It was not. She had actually scrubbed floors between gigs. She had been the maid. When she asked Walter White directly what he had to offer in return for her refusing roles, he had no answer. She also turned it personal. "Walter White is prejudiced to those Negroes of my complexion. He is only 1/8 black and is not qualified to speak for the entire race." And in a 1947 essay that almost no one remembers, she wrote, "I have never apologized for the roles I play. I believe my critics think the public more naive than it actually is." What those critics never acknowledged, and what history has been slow to recover, is what McDaniel was doing behind the screen. She organized Black Hollywood performers into a wartime committee. She persuaded directors to remove dialect from films set in modern times. She lobbied for her own Oscar nomination. She helped Lena Horne, the NAACP's preferred star, when Horne became persona non grata among other black performers. She told Horne privately, "I'm a fine black mammy on the screen, but I'm Hattie McDaniel in my house." The woman on screen and the woman off it were not the same person. The industry only wanted to see one of them. In 1942, McDaniel purchased a 17-room Mediterranean mansion in West Adams Heights, a wealthy Los Angeles neighborhood that black residents had quietly built into something extraordinary. A community of black artists, musicians, and entertainers who had finally achieved economic mobility. They called it Sugar Hill, after the famous Harlem Enclave. Lena Horne visited McDaniel's home and later said it was the most exquisite house she had ever seen. Light-colored walls, French ivory furniture, lush gardens, integrated parties of 500 guests where Clark Gable, Duke Ellington, Bing Crosby, Ethel Waters, and Bette Davis moved freely through the same rooms. In 1945, the White Homeowners Association sued to evict the black families using racially restrictive property covenants, legal agreements that barred non-white buyers from purchasing or occupying homes in designated neighborhoods. This was not unusual. These covenants blanketed most of urban America. What was unusual was what happened next. McDaniel organized approximately 30 black families, held strategy sessions in her home, secured civil rights attorney Lauren Miller, and on December 5, 1945, led over 250 supporters into Los Angeles Superior Court, wearing diamond earrings and a mink coat. Judge Thurman Clark ruled in their favor, writing, "It is time that members of the Negro race are accorded, without reservations and evasions, the full rights guaranteed them under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution." The ruling established precedent under the Equal Protection Clause that fed directly into the landmark Supreme Court case Shelley v. Kramer in 1948, which rendered racial housing covenants unenforceable across the entire country. Hattie McDaniel, the woman they tried to keep out of every room, helped change the law of the land on who is allowed to own one. Almost no one knows this story. It has been completely eclipsed by the Mammy. That was the point of the Mammy. The Academy Award did not open Hollywood's doors. In the years that followed, the NAACP's sustained campaign against demeaning roles had a consequence no one had planned for. Studios, risk-averse and profit-driven, did not respond by creating better roles for black actors. They responded by eliminating black characters almost entirely. By the late 1940s, black performers were disappearing from Hollywood films at a rate that had never been seen before. The problem wasn't solved, it was erased. McDaniel's last significant film role was in 1948. By then, she was in her mid-50s, her career quietly dismantled by the combined force of studio cowardice and civil rights pressure, neither of which had been designed with her survival in mind. She had said after the Oscar that she felt as if she had done something wrong. The industry confirmed it by moving on without her. What saved her, for a time, was radio. On November 24, 1947, Hattie McDaniel became the first Black woman to star in a network radio program, taking the lead role in CBS's The Beulah Show, playing a live-in maid for a white family. She earned $1,000 per week and negotiated key provisions into her contract before signing: no exaggerated dialect and the right to alter any script she disapproved of. She hired a Black activist as her publicist and scriptwriter. At its peak, the show reached 20 million listeners. It was the most culturally powerful she had ever been, and the NAACP condemned it. In 1951, she was cast in the television version of Beulah at $2,000 per week. She filmed 6 episodes before illness forced her off the set. She had suffered a heart ailment, then a stroke, then another stroke. She was diagnosed with advanced breast cancer. She was 58 years old, and she had been working continuously since she was 17. Hattie McDaniel died on October 26, 1952. Her estate was valued at less than $10,000, roughly $1,000 less than what she owed the IRS, 300 films, an Academy Award, a housing covenant battle that changed national law, and she died in debt. 3,000 mourners attended her funeral. 125 limousines followed her hearse. She had left detailed instructions: a white casket, a white shroud, white gardenias in her hair and hands, a gardenia blanket, a pillow of red roses. She had also left a final request: to be buried at Hollywood Memorial Park, the cemetery where the stars she had worked alongside for 2 decades were laid to rest. The cemetery, then owned by a man who would later be convicted of fraud, had a whites-only burial policy. Her request was denied. She was buried instead at Angelus Rosedale Cemetery, the first Los Angeles cemetery open to all races. No other Black woman won an acting Oscar for 51 years. Sidney Poitier, the next Black winner of any kind, did not receive his Academy Award until 1964, 12 years after her death, and 24 years after McDaniel's groundbreaking victory. Before she died, McDaniel donated her Academy Award plaque to Howard University. It was displayed in the drama department, where a young student named Felicia Rashad used to sit and study it. In the late 1960s, during a period of campus unrest, it disappeared. No one knows where it went. In October 2023, 71 years after her death, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences presented a replacement plaque to Howard University's Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts in a ceremony called Hattie's Come Home. It took them 71 years to say that. In 1999, Hollywood Forever Cemetery, formerly Hollywood Memorial Park, offered to disinter Hattie McDaniel's remains and rebury her there at no cost. Her family declined to move the body, but they approved a pink granite cenotaph in the Gardens of Legends, a memorial marker for someone buried somewhere else. It is now one of the most visited sites in the cemetery. It does not say why her body is not there. At the 2010 Academy Awards, Monique accepted Best Supporting Actress for Precious. She was wearing a blue gown and white gardenias in her hair, a deliberate echo of what Hattie McDaniel had worn 70 years earlier to the same ceremony. She said, "I want to thank Miss Hattie McDaniel for enduring all that she had to, so that I would not have to." Backstage, she added, "Ms. Hattie McDaniel, I feel you all over me, and it's about time that the world feels you all over them." Hattie McDaniel once said, "There are only 18 inches between a pat on the back and a kick in the rump." She knew exactly where she stood in every room she ever entered. She entered them anyway. She was seated at the back of the room the night she made history. She was denied the burial ground she asked for when she died. And somewhere between those two moments, she changed the legal architecture of who is allowed to own a home in America, gave 67 seconds of grace to an industry that had given her a segregated table, and spent 40 years being exactly who she said she was in every room that tried to make her into something smaller. She was not the mammy. She was Hattie McDaniel, and it took the world a very long time to learn the difference.